My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your F.A.T.E. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of F.A.T.E. How's everybody doing today? On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Scott Davis. They call him Scotty the Medium. He has been on the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel. He's at a show called Paranormal 911. He dabbles in ghost hunting, and he's able to get you messages from the other side. Scotty, welcome to your F.A.T.E, sir. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'd like to really take the opportunity to thank you for coming on the show and spending your time. And I'd also like to give a little shout out to Dave Schrader because he connected and hooked us up, and I'm a big fan. So thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, he's the best.
He is the best.
Don't tell him I said that.
I won't. Your secret.
Don't tell him I said it. It makes his ego really big.
So let's just get into it, Scotty. I'm going to start asking you a little bit of questions about your gifts, and I find it very fascinating. Can you first tell me how it came to be that you noticed that you had special abilities that other people didn't have?
Sure. So it's interesting. Some people think of it as a gift. Some people might think it's a curse. I think it's something to explore and try to better understand. Excuse me. And I think that a lot of people have this ability or this gift. They just haven't focused yet to get there. Now, that being said, the first time I quote unquote noticed I had this ability was sort of by accident. I was taking a shower after a long shift at work. And during my shower, I had this crazy thing happen where I started hearing a voice in my head that wasn't mine. And with that, my imagination, the space in my head where I would, imagine things, was kind of hijacked, so to speak. And all this information flooded into me. And I was very curious and also a little bit scared about what was happening because I had never experienced anything like that before. But being a very curious person, I took the information that I had somehow received or imagined possibly, and I wrote it all down. And basically the information was from a man. He identified himself simply as Pop, and that the message or the information that I'd gotten was for his daughter, who was a friend of my mom's. So I called my mom pretty much immediately and I said, hey, do you think that he would be interested in hearing this or helping me understand if this is like a real thing or not? And it was funny because my mom was like, oh, you're doing this again? And I was like, what does she mean by that? And I visit that later. So she said, okay. So I got the lady's number and I called her and I set up a meeting because I needed to do it in person so she could see I was keeping it straight, like I have a straight face. It's like a real thing. So I brought her the notes that I had taken and she looked over them and she said, this is my dad. And he's passed. And all this information is stuff that unless you knew him, how would you know this stuff? And I said, I don't know. And I said, why would your dad visit me while I was in the shower? And remember, at this time, I didn't have any of the terms or the knowledge that I have now. So if I had told you this story when it first happened, my terminology or the way that I would explain it to you might be a little different. But now after doing this for so long, I understand it so much better. So basically, from there, I still wasn't convinced that this was like a real thing or a repeatable event. So I started really doing a lot of homework on it, so to speak. I was reading all the books I could get my hands on. I was watching other mediums. I was trying to figure out what it was that was going on. And once I started to get a grasp of it, then I started to get a little brave and find people that would let me sit with them. And one by one, I would just go through these, what I didn't know were readings, and do them. And every time people were like, wow, this is really crazy how you can know this stuff and not have actually known the person you're talking to. So that's kind of where it all started off.
Did you have any fear surrounding this, that you had intrusions? I don't know if you would call them that, but some sort of lack of control over getting download that spirits or
Yeah. So
were?
I I kind of feel like I'm too dumb to be scared about a lot of things. I really have almost no fear in life about most things. The only thing I'll never do is jump out of a plane that's not crashing. Other than that, I really have no fear of things. And that's not like a mantra. I just am. That's just who I am. I always am very curious and just want to see what's out there or what, see what life has to offer. I'm always up for an adventure. So I just don't have that. Now, what I was afraid of when it happened was that I was, and I'm not, to say kindly, I was afraid that I might be going crazy a little bit when it first happened, because I didn't experience this ever before. And I was like, I hope I'm not going crazy. I hope that this isn't like some psychosis taking form. And that's why it was really important to quickly find the person who I thought that the information was for and validate it. Because as soon as that happened, I was able to take that little bit of fear and say like, okay, this is real. It really happened. It's real information that was validated from the source. So I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind, and we can go forward. And that was, I would say, the first, not the last time, but one of the very few times that from that point on where I was not in control of getting the information. And I'd have to say that if it wasn't for such a kind person who visited me, although a little strange to do it in the shower, he was very gentle and very kind. And it didn't scare me because I felt like I was just talking to another person. Right. So it was, no, it really left me without fear and more curious about what it was. And that's where I went from there.
Did you have any capabilities as a child? This only started happening to you when you were a fully grown adult?
Yeah, so that's when my mom said, "Oh, you're doing this again." So when I was younger, apparently I would talk to some very vivid imaginary friends, and some of them had been validated by my parents' friends, um, saying like, "Oh, he was talking. It sounds like he's talking to my grandmother, or like he's talking to so and so," and it would be in their homes, or they would be over, and I just talk about them matter of factly as if they were there, and that sort of freaks people out. So as I got older, because that was very young when I was probably about 5, 6, 7, maybe. And then as I got older, that sort of died off. But what happened was through my life, I'd have a lot of paranormal experiences, and I didn't quite understand that not everybody had such fantastic things happen around them. And I just kind of went with it. And as a matter of fact, I always tell people through my teenage years, whenever I was with my friends and they wanted to do something spooky, they'd make sure to bring me because we'd almost always have a better chance of something scary happening if I was there, which we didn't know why, but now we understand.
What do you think it is? Why do you think this happened to you? Why do you think you have this gift? Do you have any insight? Do you just feel like your spirit, your soul, you have some sort of special capability to lift the
Uh,
veil? What do you think it is? I'm always
yeah.
very
So,
curious.
well, I like, that's a great question too, because first off, I'm not special. I think that you can do this, and I think that every human being on the planet is wired into whatever spiritual network is out there, and everybody could do this if they really took the time to be calm and listen to themselves and focus, and then be able to just let go or suspend a little bit of that belief that's been instilled in you about what's around you. But I have to say that if somebody tomorrow came and said, "We have proof that this is spiritual," and they could prove it, like Jan say, like, "Here's the proof that this is a spiritual thing," I'd say, okay, that's cool. But on the other hand, if a scientist came to me tomorrow and said, "We can prove this is very scientific, and this is why you can do this and others can as well," I would be okay with accepting that as well. But I feel like it's 50-50. There's probably a spiritual aspect to it, because why would we need to do it if there wasn't something spiritually connected to it? But also scientifically, there's got to be something happening inside of my brain or somewhere in my nervous system, or a chemical that is activating in my brain that is letting these things be able to happen. And that's where it came in when I started doing the research on this stuff. I started reading a lot about the scientific part of it, the the theories on it. And then I also, went into a little bit of the spiritual stuff. And I kind of said, okay, I like both of these. I'm going to try to put them together a little bit and make it my own thing, keep it very grounded for me, because I need to feel like I'm not flying off the planet when I talk about this stuff. And I also want people who are listening to me to stay engaged and understand that I'm just like everybody. I'm just like them. I got bills, I got kids, I got a house, the whole thing, a regular job. Like, that's part of my life as well. But then there's this other piece, and it makes it easier to explain people when you're coming from the same spot as them, as at the same ground. So yeah, there's nothing special. Just, who knows? I don't know. I don't know why I can do it, or it just spontaneously happened that way. But someday maybe they'll know, and we'll figure it out.
Are you at the point now with your gifts where you have control and you're able to allow them in, and then also shield yourself from any incoming messages? Like when you're out getting groceries, are you walking in the aisle and somebody's tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Tell Betty over there that I love her"? Like, what is it like living your life with these kind of downloads that you're getting? How are you dealing with that?
Okay, so two things, and I'm going to show you exactly how right on about what I'm saying is accurate. So number one, yes, I can turn all of this stuff on and off at will. And it's very important to be able to do that, because it would be exhausting to be at the grocery store, and just get messages all the time. Everybody knows somebody who passed away. Not necessarily that they all have something they want to say, but they, if there's a grocery store full of 50 people and, 25 of them have relatives that know that I can speak with them, my guess is they'd probably be jumping all over me to get that message across. So I have a very set boundary when I'm up doing normal people stuff. They respect my boundary for the most part. Every once in a while, there's one that bangs down the door, and I give them a little time and see what they want. But for the most part, it's on and off at will as I like it. And again, that took a lot of practice, because that was the first thing that I needed to say was I don't ever want to be in the position where I'm just getting inundated with information and feel like I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
So it has to be at my will, and I've kept my promise with the other side or whatever's out there. I said, if you give me that boundary, I promise that I'll continue to do this for you, but you have to give me the space, because I can't do it all the time. It's exhausting. And then the second thing that I was going to say is that, any reason why you picked the name Betty?
No, none.
Okay. Oh, my grandmother, Elizabeth, who we called Betty, passed away in January.
Oh.
And people have been asking if I've gotten any messages from her. Even my aunt just messaged me the other day and said, "Have you heard from my mom?" And I said, "Sorry, I haven't heard anything from her yet. But I think I might have just gotten a little something from you. So hi, Grandma."
I mean, that just gave me chills. I literally just got chills. Betty just came to my mind. I wasn't even thinking about that sentence. It just kind of came out of me. So it could very well be. Very well.
That's how spirit work. They will always take an opportunity to not only get a message to somebody when they need to, but then also show the person that they got the message to that they have something special as well. And I was just saying it to you that the universe doesn't make mistakes. You picked that name for a reason. Of all of the names you could have picked in all of the world,
I mean,
you said Betty.
I did. I said Betty, and I never say Betty. I don't know any Bettys. So that is crazy, by the way. That is so nuts. Do you find that most of the spirits that you engage with are happy, pleasant, okay with passing? What do you feel like the majority of the contacts that you have with the other side are? Are they saddened that they aren't with their loved ones? Tell me a little bit about your experiences and just dealing with souls that have passed on.
Yeah. So for the most part, the people on the other side have crossed over are generally happy. I try not to put any kind of religious connotation to it, because we all have a religion or something we believe in. So I say, if you believe in heaven, that's where they are. If you believe in a good place or whatever your version of that is, that's where they are. That's generally where they all go. And they have this ability to watch us and influence us a bit and send us signs, but they don't spend all of their time with us for the most part. Now, I have done quite a few readings where mom or dad or like a sister or something is like, you let them know that I'm with them all of the time. I don't leave their side. I know they miss me, so I'm with them as much as I can be, just to help them feel the comfort of knowing that I'm around. But they're happy. They're usually very happy. The only people who are, this is going to be, I hope this is interesting. When they're not happy, when they leave behind a sum of money or property or something valuable and the family is torn up over it, and that's when they become unhappy. I often hear and it comes through in the readings. They'll say things like, I wish I didn't leave that money to them because it's dividing them, or I wish I didn't leave them with all of these legal issues that I didn't know were going to be a problem before I left, because when they were in control of it, there was no issue, right? So that's when they get upset. And oftentimes they say things like, speaking of which, like if they passed and they had a problem with somebody that they were family or friends with, when they passed, almost immediately they always say, like, tell them I'm sorry for having a problem. Let them know, don't be guilty, don't feel guilty. It's all good. Water under the bridge. We're fine. Because they want to let that person who's alive to not live with that. They want them to know, like, it's good. The ego is gone, right? So that's gone for them. So they really want their job when they come to speak to somebody like me is to help pass some of that positive information and say, like, it's all good. We're fine now. Sorry that I didn't talk to you for 10 years before I died because, you said my rugs were ugly. And I've heard all of it. Believe me, I've heard a lot of stuff like that. And it's just like, oh my God. And it's so much relief on the person who I'm talking with when they're like, first, they say things like, I can't believe that you knew about the rug. So I know you're definitely talking to her. And I've been carrying that around for a while, that they would still be upset with me, which to me is funny because I never think of stuff like that. I'm like, if somebody passes, even before I could do all this stuff, I was like, I never really thought about if somebody passed away and they were upset with me. I just assumed that they wouldn't be mad anymore. What's to be mad if we're not both in the same space, right? So that's kind of what they tell me anyway. So probably why I felt that way in my life. Like, they're just like, tell them to not worry about it,
Yeah. Do you have a fear of dying anymore, or do you fear nothing because you know now that you're not going to end, that you are going to go on, that your personality is probably going to be intact to some degree? Maybe you're not your body, but you are going to go on and be a being of light in another realm or a dimension or whatever you want to call it, heaven. Do you
Yeah.
not fear death anymore?
I'm personally not afraid to pass, but I'm afraid for the other things, like leaving my kids behind or leaving my wife behind or leaving people behind that I'm still would want to help, but as far as me personally crossing over is fine. I mean, it's something that I don't waste time thinking about because everybody passes. There's nothing that any of us can do about it. So I don't waste time being afraid about that. But of course, like anybody else, I think about, what if I'm out going to the grocery store and an 18-wheeler waffles me and my family's left without me? Those are the things that I worry about, but not the passing part. Just not being able to still be here for my friends and family.
What about spirit guides? Are you able to communicate with your personal spirit guides? Or angels, or whatever you want to call those? They say that we are never alone, that there's always a guide or someone with us that is from the spirit world that is here to help and assist us. Do you have any insights as to who your spirit guides are? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So when I first started doing all of this stuff, this is a good little piece of information for everybody's like looking for it. When I first started doing all of this, I had never thought about the word spirit guide in my life. Like, that was very woo. It was so far off my radar as a person that it wasn't something I thought about. Right. So then when I start reading about all this stuff, I'm like, okay, so there's these guides and they're supposed to be helping me. I was like, but how do you know the difference, and where do you meet them, and how do you validate them? Because remember, I am an evidentiary medium, which means that when people give me information, it has to be specific. Otherwise I won't use it. It's just junk. Basically, it'll just be information we can't validate. And I don't like that. I need the validation so that not for me, but for the person on the other side. But when it comes to spirit guide stuff, how in the world are you supposed to validate a spirit guide? So I went and I found somebody who's was and still is a very loved and popular medium. I kind of got 10 minutes of her attention somewhere, and I was just like, look, this is where I'm at. And she was very kind, and she was like, listen, this is all you have to do. If you want to connect with your spirit guide, just go home, you meditate. And I said, yeah. She said, all right, go home, meditate for a few minutes, and just ask them what their name is. And as soon as you have a name for them, that's all you need. They'll give you the rest from there as soon as you recognize them. So I said, okay. I went home. I did exactly what she said. And in the middle of the meditation of me just being like, please just introduce yourself, gave me a name. And I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. I did actually, and it wasn't a human being name. It didn't sound like, so I was like, what is this? So I wrote it down, and I Googled it as soon as I had the opportunity. And the word or the name, was Henon, Henon, like that. It sounded like. And I looked it up, and here's what was interesting about my spirit guide was, one, it's a type of bamboo, which is funny because for weeks before this, I was obsessing over bamboo. I don't care about plants one bit. I don't like grass. I'm allergic to the outside. I'm one of those people. but I was obsessed with bamboo, and I had no idea why. I was going to like the flea market, being like, that's some nice bamboo right there. There's some growing on the side of the road in my town. I'd driven by a million times, and now all of a sudden I'm noticing it. And I was like, that's weird. So then I look up the name Henon, and it's a type of bamboo. And I was like, oh my God, was this being trying to like get at me for a while? And then the second part of it was there was a mathematician who figured out irregular orbital patterns of stars, and it's called the Henon pattern. And that was his name. And I was like, so this guy was related to stars and this really interesting bamboo. And I was like, okay, so bamboo is interesting because it's really strong, but it grows underground in a tube system. So it's one of those really neat plants. It's very invasive, and it just grows and gets stronger and bigger, and you have to manage it, which is sort of like what I was doing. And it was kind of coming from nowhere. And then this star connection was really important as well. And as soon as I had that information, I started communicating with this spirit guide. And basically, I got a bunch of really interesting information out of this entity. Basically, like, they're my source of information. If I need something, I don't understand something. If I need them to pick something for me from the other side that I'm not quite getting, they're kind of like my Google on the other side. And I just say, all right, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me out? And they'll put it out in front of me or explain it to me or send me the signs that I need in the universe in order to make it happen. So yeah. And there are many of them. That just happens to be like my main point of contact. And then there's other ones that are human beings that sort of are interchangeable, and they come in and out. I have one that yells at me when I'm about to make bad purchases. It's this woman, and she's like, don't buy that or don't do that. That's bad. It's a bad move. And like anybody else, I don't listen. A lot of times I'm like, I'm not doing this anyway. Who are you? And she's like, every time you're going to be sorry for that. And I am.
Wow.
So I started listening to that person. And there are all kinds of them that come in and out that help guide me along. It's interesting.
Oh my God. I love that. That is fascinating. Oh, I wish I had these types of gifts. I would be loving that. What about bad spirits or people of low souls of low vibration? Do you ever have any interactions with spirits that are not of good or of lower vibrational tendencies that don't have the best intentions for you or others? Do you have any experiences?
Yeah. So as a medium, I sort of took on the responsibility of paranormal investigation, right? And the reason I did that is because growing up, I had so many paranormal experiences that I did not deem as good ones. They were scary. I was unnerved by the things that I was seeing and experiencing. So when I figured out that I could do this, I immediately said, well, if I can help other people, then I'm going to do that. And what I found is that people, in general, will think something is bad because they can't explain it. So they'll call me to their house for the sinister spirit that's roaming the house. And I get there and it's just like grandma or grandpa or like, a spirit from like 150 years ago. And they're like, this is where I used to live. My barn was here. Why are these people here? And you have to kind of explain to them like, hey, look, you passed and, you don't really belong here anymore. You should have gone over to the other side. And they're like, so many times they're just like, oh, I didn't realize that. Like, I was wondering why things were so different here. And I was upset. And they would do things in the house, like, pull cabinets open, make noises, the rattling ghost, trope. They would do those sorts of things. So after I'd explain to them that they were okay to go, they would go. But those are like the mid-level ones that seem scary. And then we have the ones that I've dealt with that are not to be messed with. The ones that I say, like, as a medium, I am not I know a lot of mediums do this. I don't make it my responsibility. I talk to them. And if I can't talk to them and get them to leave, then I find somebody who can help remove angry, angsty, upset, or mal spirits. Because there are ones that are way too strong or way too much for my knowledge base. And I want people with a lot of experience taking care of those situations, because I don't want to leave anybody worse than I found them. And I don't want that responsibility of like coming in and being like, letting my ego take over and be like, I can get rid of this spirit. Who do they think they are? And then making things way worse. Right. So we go in and we investigate, we gather evidence through mediumship, electronic, and we also go and do a nice deep dive, figure out what is happening there to the best of our ability. And then if it is something dark or malevolent, then we go ahead and find the right people who know how to deal with that, whether it's clergy, whether it's demonologists, or even ufologists, other people that are out there in the world that understand things better than I do. And we build a case and work together, which is the most important thing to do in all of this stuff, especially with the bad stuff.
If someone has an attachment or has had a negative attachment jump on them, what are some of the signs that somebody is having a situation where they either have a negative entity that is attached to them, or a demon-like or lower vibration? What are some of the signs that people will have if there is something untoward around them in their home, attached to their energetic body? Have you had any experiences with somebody who's had that problem?
Yeah. So with again, with going back to religious stuff, demon is very like Catholic derived, right? That's a very Catholic thing. And in other religions, we have things like say like jinn in the Mideast and the Muslim religion. So it's when it comes to people who have or believe that they have negative attachments, I have found that to be very rare. Even with the people who have explained to me, like, this is what's happening, I think that I have an attachment. More than often, I can speak with them for a few minutes and ask them just some few basic questions and find out that they have some trauma in their own personal life. There's some mental health issues that need to be addressed. And there are things on a very human level that would need to be taken care of and cleared up before I would say like, oh, this is a demon, or this is, a ghost that's doing this. Because people, when they don't want to blame themselves for a lot of their issues. So they want to go to the supernatural and the paranormal, and it's not their fault. It's not it's human nature to not want to be like, this is my fault. I'm the reason this is happening. And if there is some sort of mental issue, then you may not have the capacity to look inward and say like, I'm doing this to myself. Right. So when you ask for help, for anybody who's listening that might be an investigator or a medium, don't be irresponsible with that stuff. Speak with them, get to know who they are as a person, ask about, and don't feel like you're being intrusive. They've invited you. Ask them, how was your childhood? How was your marriage? How was your, relationship with your kids? Other things. Do you have substance abuse issues? And be honest with me, please. Do you have financial debt that's crushing you? Is it any of the things that you think would make you not sleep at night? Ask those questions, because that you will uncover a trove of stuff. And then you can say, okay, this person, I am dealing with a case right now. I've asked all of those questions and they've all been very honestly answered. And it left me with saying, okay, everybody in this house is pretty mentally fit. They're leading normal lives. There's no substance abuse. There's no crushing debt that they're admitting to. Everything seems on the up and up. So what is it that they're experiencing, right? So that's where you have to start asking those questions instead of paranormal and supernatural. So when it comes to people thinking that they have attachments all the time, I find that just to be very rare. And I would say, like, it's probably not that. It's probably something that you need to solve on yourself on a very basic human level.
Interesting. Do you think, are you religious? Like, has your gifts changed any type of religious beliefs that you once held, or expanded them, or morphed them into a different perspective, because you do have so much contact with people who have passed over? Or where do you stand in as far as religion?
Sure. So I'm raised Catholic, made all my sacraments and all the things in the faith and the religion. And even though my religion says that we shouldn't be doing this, I find that to be, and this, please don't come after me, anybody. This is just an opinion. I don't want to change your belief or your faith. It's fine. I just want to say that there are a lot of things that are written in the Bible or book that are very man-made.
Yes.
And there was a reason why the church a long time ago wanted to have control over religion. And it's for the purpose of money and this sort of thing. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, is that now we understand so much more about the world. The world is so much bigger now. There's so many more people. We've expanded our ideas into so many different cultures. We can now reach out and talk to other people from other cultures and understand them so much better now if we listen. And I think that every other religion in the world speaks to their ancestors. I think that they speak to the dead freely and openly. I think that they speak to beings that they might call aliens, which is fine. That's up to them. And for me, it opened my mind to all of that other stuff, instead of being hard-lined on like, well, Catholic is just it. That's it. I now see the similarities in all of the religion, and I see the good and the bad in all of them. And I recognize that good and bad exists in both. And I choose to acknowledge more of the good stuff and take the things that I like from each of them and put them into my faith, in knowing that whether we want to call him God or, Muhammad or whatever it is, it's going to be, it's just going to be, as long as we're being good as best we can, moral souls and people, then when we go over to the other side, no matter what you called them or what vocabulary you gave it, you're going to cross over and go into that paradise or that heaven or that good place, which is really important to me.
Do you still believe that there's a hell? Because do you believe people go to hell if they're bad people at all?
So again, just with the Catholic term of hell, right? That some people call there's purgatory and hell, and then there's. I will say this: I've one time did a reading where a spirit, in my opinion, did come from hell. He, when he was alive, he was a pedophile.
Oh.
He offended his own daughters. He was a murderer. He was just the worst of the worst kind of person, was not remorseful. And what happened during the reading was, and this is scary. This is a scary thing, but I was not afraid because I have faith in what I'm doing. I was sitting at a dining room table with this woman and her husband. Her husband was former law enforcement and was watching me like a hawk because he did not believe in anything that I was saying. That's what he told me. But he said he was there to support his wife. And I said, that's totally fine, bud. I'm just going to do my thing. And if you don't believe me by the end of this, that's your personal beliefs and that's fine. But thank you for being open for your wife. So the first spirit that had come through during that reading was this, I'll describe it to you. and your audience. Sitting in this beautiful dining room, and it's broad daylight out. It's beautiful. It's like a sunny day, like it was here today in New Jersey, 80 degrees, gorgeous, lovely. And I hear some footsteps coming from behind us. And then I feel the room get really heavy, like I walked into static electricity, but we hadn't moved from the table. And as I'm feeling the energy change in the room, I could see this black, gooey ball just make its way in between me and the woman who I was talking to at the table. And it was sort of undulating and moving and oozing and dripping. And I could just feel it in my stomach, how terrible it was. And the information that came out of this entity, this thing, was the stuff that I just described to you. And before I opened my mouth, I said to this woman and the man, that the gentleman who was very intimidating, by the way, I said, listen, I'm going to say a couple things. And if I'm at all wrong about any of this stuff, I'm going to pack my stuff up and I'm going to leave and I'm not going to talk to you anymore, because what I'm going to say is so sad to me and angry and disgusting that if I'm wrong, then we're just going to end this. And I gave her this information, and she said, she confirmed every bit of it. She said, that's my dad. He killed himself. You would never know. And the gentleman who was the law enforcement officer doubled down and he said, you have to be real, because this happened in France in the 70s under different names. She doesn't have the same name. You could have never Googled this. You could have never looked this information. You would have never, ever know the things that you just said unless somebody in this room told you. And he said, we didn't say it. So she told me, and she told this thing, her dad, she said, if he came from hell, he can go right back there because there's no forgiveness. And with that, this thing just kind of pulled itself back up out of the room, and the room lightened up and felt better again. And we went on and had nice readings with the people she wanted to hear from.
Wow. That is a crazy story. Wow. You're still not ever fearful when you get these feelings of dark energy, lower vibration? You still feel that you are protected, or that someone's protecting you, and you can be around these entities without them attaching to you or harming you in any way?
Yeah. So, they will, how would say this? They can only take power from you if you give it to them. Right. So if I were to be afraid, it's like a dog that you don't know. If you show fear to the dog and the dog knows that you're afraid, it may respond in that way and attack. So when I go into places or I come across not great spirits or entities like that, I just don't show them that I might be afraid. And again, I just like I said at the beginning, I really am not afraid. And again, I don't know if that's because I was afraid so much growing up of the things that I was experiencing that now that I can explain them so much better that I'm not afraid. And then I have the other feeling of like, even on the darker side of things, or the people who want to talk and not necessarily like the lower vibrational stuff that's out there, but like I have zero judgment, even for that guy who just came. Personally, as a human being, it's despicable to think of any of that stuff. However, I didn't have any judgment on any level because my job is not to judge. That's not my job. My job is to listen and pass the information. So I remain open to all spectrums of anybody or anything that wants to talk. And I do my best to listen and interpret and get out the best facts that I can about those things. And I think it's sort of like, why shoot the guy who's listening to us, even though, he may not be saying the greatest things, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this thing right here is a piece of garbage. We don't really want to deal with this thing. But I gave it the time of day. I didn't really want to make the judgment. But then I'm like, well, they did a lot of murders and there's a lot of bad things that happened here around with this. So it's just one of those funny things,
Oh, that's that. What do you think about, what do you think? I feel, and I'm new at the spirituality game as far as I grew up in the church, but I was an atheist up until I had some healing trauma that I had to go through that opened me up into energy healing and spirituality. And now I'm kind of been obsessed with learning everything I can about spirituality and our the possibility of us being very much interdimensional beings and all of it. It's why I started this podcast. But I'm always curious to ask my guests that come on what they feel like the nature of our reality is. What are we doing here? What is our purpose? And I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think, Scotty the Medium?
Boy, I saw that question on your sheet and I was like, I hope we don't talk about this one because that's such a big one to bite off.
It is.
Why are we
What are we
here?
doing here?
I don't know. I don't know. Like what, but I just look, I'm just fascinated by everything and also really dumb. So it makes it great for me because I'm just like, I don't really feel the question to ask, the need to ask that question because I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be experiencing everything. I'm happy to live in a place where I can talk to you in California from New Jersey on a small device where we're linked up and other people can listen to it later. You know, I love that. You know, I live in a world where any food that I could possibly ever want is at my fingertips. I can sit down and relax and watch TV. I can go to games with my kids and do all kinds of entertaining things. And then, you know, I just, there's so much other stuff that's happening right now at this moment that I'm so much more interested in than wondering about why we're here. Because if you want to ask me why I'm here, it's because my mom and a guy that you probably didn't know too good got together. And 9 months later, I popped out and here we are. So that's why I'm here.
Fair
There's a very
enough.
human interaction between two people. But you know, on a whole, human beings, I hope that we're just learning as we go. Maybe not as quick as we should, but I hope that's why we're here to learn.
I kind of feel that the 3D planet Earth is a little bit of soul school, and we're here to come and live lives and learn and grow. And I do believe that I have lived other lives on this planet. I've sat with other mediums who told me about my other lives on this planet. And I think that you're here to experience and learn how to love and be compassionate and understand that we are all connected and that we are all here as one in a way. I feel like that is becoming more and more my personal belief as to what we're doing here. And I think that when we come back, we are here to learn how to expand and become a better, more compassionate, more loving consciousness. That's my take on what we're all doing here. And I think that some souls are young and they struggle with being able to learn certain things about being on this 3D plane. And I think that there's souls that have been here many, many times that have a much better handle on what it means to be a human and how we can learn to look beyond our differences and understand that we're all fellow travelers to the grave, learning our own journeys and experiencing life.
That's about right.
You know, that's kind of what I'm starting to gather through my teachings, readings, talking to people, listening to podcasts, that we are all here to learn to be more compassionate, more loving, and this is a bit of a soul school. And we keep coming back until we learn the lessons that we're supposed to learn. And then who knows? Then we go on to other dimensions. What are your thoughts on interdimensional beings, aliens? What do you have any experiences in your paranormal investigating or ghost hunting with anything of that ilk?
Yeah. So most recently, with this case that I'm working on, I went into it. They told me about their ghosts, and I went into it like a paranormal investigation for ghosts. But I asked, after I got through my usual questioning about all the other stuff we talked about, they were not leaning heavy into the idea that they weren't like, you know, we did, you know, I don't know how to explain this. A lot of times when we do these investigations, they already have an idea like, no, we know that somebody passed away in this house, or like, there was something happened on the land and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And they didn't have any of that. And I, through the conversation, I just was like, wait, can I just stop with you guys for a second? I was like, let's just put this right out there. I was like, do you guys not think that this is ghosts? And do you think that this is something to do with aliens or extraterrestrials or something? And they were like, yeah, maybe. But from there, I said, okay, I'm going to take the stuff that I know about alien abductions and aliens and stuff like that, and I'm going to apply some of those questions, along with my usual questions in the paranormal, to this. And it worked out. The woman who I'm working with that is having this happen with her family is a very good person to work with, because I asked her to do a couple things for me, like if she had neighbors that she'd feel comfortable about talking to about this stuff, if she would ask them questions that I was asking. And she did that. And guess what? They came back with like more alien stuff than ghost stuff, which I was really surprised about. And they were open about it. Like they were like, yeah, back in the 70s, when our daughter lived here with us, one day she woke up and she was completely naked in her bed with her clothes folded up at the foot of the bed. And she said she felt like she was out of the house all night, but couldn't explain it. That's classic alien abduction stuff. Then they live on a lake that's near the Jersey Shore. And they were talking about the strange lights in the sky that they would see, and the strange howling that would come out of the woods in the area, which is more alien and Bigfoot stuff. So when it comes to interdimensional beings, extraterrestrials, I want to believe. When it comes to ghosts, it's easy for me to believe these things because I have now witnessed them very close up. I understand them to some degree. But when it comes to aliens or Bigfoot or any of those sorts of things, I'm in it for the ride. I'm here for the adventure, and I want to know. Like I'm here. So if somebody were to call me tomorrow and say we're going to go to this spot that keeps having UFOs show up, I'm in. I'll go. I want to see it. And not see it like, oh, I need to see it to believe it. I'm not that guy. I'm like wholeheartedly like, please let me see this, because it will expand my mind even more, which is what I want.
I am the same. I'm the same. I have become so much more open-minded the last 5 years of my life. I am now open. I am now more curious, and I am now more willing to be pulled in a path that would open the door for alien encounters, multi-dimensional being, anything like this. I find that that life on this planet is so much more magical and so much more complex than we think it is. And I think that we're just kind of stuck in our matrix of mainstream, and it doesn't allow us, our belief systems, I think in general, hold us back from fully understanding the full capacity of what is going on within our plane, and that we don't allow ourselves to be curious enough, and we allow fear to hold us back a lot. A lot of people are fearful. Fear is a big thing. People don't like to even entertain the thought that there could be other species or other aliens, I should say, that are among us or that are out there. And I think it has such a great conflict with what they feel inside their personal belief system, that they can't allow themselves. I'm gonna have to edit. I'm gonna have to edit this out, which is great.
That's all right.
It's interesting you say my throat chakra's closing up, because that's what it feels like.
It is.
I'm having weird experiences with you, Scotty. Isn't that?
That's pretty common.
Really?
I'm what people call a generator. I tend to again, when my friends want to go do spooky stuff, they call me. It's an interesting thing that even though you and I are very far away from each other, we're still linked at the moment. And it tends to lend to more experiences and more heightened abilities and capabilities of the people I'm around. So you're experiencing that at the moment, I think.
I really am. And I've really been trying to lean in to meditation to lean into opening myself up to spirit guides, to angels, to any kind of communication, help, information. And I'm trying to work on my own inner intuition and really start leaning into it, listening to myself, listening to my own voice within. And I'm trying to hone any kind of um spidey senses, clair sensibilities that we all have. I'm trying to open myself to that type of information. And I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I feel like my intuition is expanding, that I'm starting to learn more about listening to my own inner voice and paying more attention to myself.
Yeah.
And, I don't think I'll ever be like Scotty the Medium, but maybe I
That's
will.
not true. Right now, you could just be at the beginning, that tip of the iceberg, and you could be rocking in months. You could be at the top of your game. It's really funny because I would say when I was starting to learn things, I'd watch somebody like Long Island Medium
Mhm.
or my favorite, Kim Russo. She's a fantastic medium that we know from TV, or Amy Allen. And these women were top of their game. They're the best out there. They're very good at entertaining all these things. And I said, how could I ever be that good? I don't know. And as soon as I started really opening up and doing everything, people would say things like, wow, you're just as good as these people. They're the celebrities that they would compare me to, which was terrible for my ego, because I was like, shut up, can't say those things to me, because it makes my head big. So let's turn that down a little bit. But thank you for saying that, because it makes me feel appreciated that I'm doing a good job and the hard work is paying off, which is more important than all the other stuff. So whatever you tell yourself is where you're going to go. And our buddy Dave, one day I was sitting on the couch watching TV with my wife and having a drink, and we settled in every week to watch the Holzer Files. And I said to her, I was like, someday I'd really like to work with Dave Schrader. I was like, this is a guy who I really want to sit and work with. 2 years later, we're booking events together and doing things together. And at the time when I said that, I was literally like, not even a blip on anybody's radar. I was still trying to figure it out. And then 2 years it took, and I'm up here with some of the best people in the paranormal and the mediumship world. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I do think there is something to speaking the words that, you're spelling, you're speaking. It's almost a form of manifestation. You're putting that energy, that vibration, that intention into the world. And I think that the universe will kind of pull that back for you. It's like the universal law of attraction, like attracts like. And if you're resonating or vibrating or speaking words into the ether, you are sending out messages, and the universe is going to respond and bring you, careful what you wish for, as what they say. I try to be very mindful of my words now, because I do understand that our words have more power than we think, and our thoughts and our emotions dictate a lot of what shows up in your reality. And I try and be very mindful of that now, of what I'm feeling and what I'm resonating with, because I do think there is something to manifestation, meditation, and I do think we are more powerful than we think we are. I think that if we paid more attention to our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, we could literally change what's going on around us. You could bring and pull in things that you had no idea you had the capacity to do if you just paid a little bit more attention to where you're resonating and what your intentions are. And I try and set daily intentions every single day. Now, when I get up, I will set an intention for the day.
That's awesome. That's great. That's a great way to do it. I like it.
I am learning and growing, and here we go. We're almost coming up on an hour here, though. Where can people seek you, find you, get your help, whether it be speaking to a loved one who has passed, or maybe they're having their own poltergeist situation, ghost related? How do people get in touch with you for any kind of help you can give them?
They can come visit me on any social media. They right now the biggest platform to find me on, easiest is probably TikTok, Scotty the Medium. If you want to look for me on Instagram, it's Scotty the NJ Medium, like New Jersey. And if you want to find me on Facebook, it's simply Scott Davis, as a little blue check next to it, so you know it's me. And yeah, just send me a message. And it takes me a little while sometimes to get back to you. I apologize, I'm very busy, but I will do my best to help you. And you can always Google me. My phone number's out there. Best way to get me is for like ghost stuff is to text me, and I try to get back to people that are having paranormal issues pretty quickly.
That is amazing. So would you say that you're spending most of your time helping people, or you're still, you had mentioned that you were an officer, and so you're still work a full-time job, and you do this as to help other people on the side? Or at what point do you feel like you're going to just step into this world and you're going to be Scotty the Medium, and this is what I do, and this is how I help? Where are you at in the world?
So it's funny. I'm in a very blessed and precarious position. My job is a law enforcement officer. I've been doing it for 12 years, and I'm well into paying into the pension. So it would behoove me to just finish it the 25 years. So I still have some time left for that. But while I'm doing that, I have a very good schedule doing that. So it leaves me a lot of time to focus on the other stuff, the Sky the Medium stuff. So I dedicate probably somewhere between like 25 to 30 hours a week on mediumship and paranormal stuff, 40 hours a week on work, and all. I don't know. I feel bad saying my family gets my extra time, but that's sort of where it lands at the moment. But they're cool. They understand that that's what we're doing.
Do you ever read your wife and your kids? That must be amazing. I mean,
no, not really. I kind of feel like my wife always says to me, she's like, you talk to all these other people's family members, you never talk to anybody for me. But every time I even bring up somebody being around for her, she gets all weepy. So I kind of like, I'll just mention, I'll be like, hey, your dad's around. Or especially when I feel her dad, like I'm a husband, obviously. So sometimes I'll say things and I can feel her dad just staring at me. And I'm like, okay, just to let you know, your dad didn't agree with what I just said either. And, that's something that she usually likes to hear. But for them, yeah, it's like that. And then for my kids, they're too young. They just like when they tell me their little ghost stories and they have somebody to listen to them. It's not like when I was growing up and people were like, that's the weird kid. I don't know.
well, you never know. They could be little psychics themselves one day, the next
Someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Scotty, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm going to put all your information in the show notes. I'd love to have you back on again at some point. Come back and promote whatever you're doing out there. And I'd love to get a reading from you one day. If you could squeeze me in one day,
Fantastic.
I would love to, my father's no longer with me, and I'd love to see
Hear what you might have to say. All right. We can work that out.
I would love to do that.
Sure.
On that note, everybody, that is a wrap on this episode of Fate. Thank you, Scotty the Medium, for coming on.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed your time. And we'll see you next week, guys. Journey well, everybody. Bye. Alrighty, guys. That is a wrap on this episode of Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. I hope you enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed spending my time with Scotty, learning about his gifts. I find him to be fascinating. I love that he is curious and not fearful, and he doesn't allow fear to keep him from receiving information. He's open-minded, and he's evidence-based. I love that he said, I'm an evidence-based psychic medium, and he wants facts to back up the messages that he receives. I find that's a very important aspect of what he does. And what an amazing thing to be able to give so many people peace and a sense of knowing that their loved ones are with them, that they want to communicate with them, and that he has that capacity to touch people's lives like that. What a gift. I hope to have him back on the show. And I don't know what to say about the the weird happening that took place during our discussion. I'm not exactly sure why I said Betty. Betty just came to my mind as I was speaking the sentence, and I said Betty. I found that to be interesting, to say the least. And also, when my throat closed up like that, it was a sensation that I had never really felt before. And even the water did nothing to tamp it down. And when he said, "Oh, your throat chakra is closing up," um, I found that to be an interesting take. I'm not exactly sure why or what was behind that, but there was definitely some weird things that happened during that interview that I had never have happened with any other guests so far. So I kind of love to have him back on. I want to get a reading from him myself. I don't have my father with me anymore, and I'd love to speak to my dad. My dad was so funny and amazing, and I miss him, and I would love to be able to tell him so through Scotty and get any kind of messages that my father could give me. I miss him terribly. It was this month, it's been 5 years, and it goes by in a blink. So if you still have your dad, hug him up every day, guys. Hug him up every day. All right. On next week's episode, I am super duper excited. I have a woman on. Her name's Dr. Holly Duckworth, and she's a psychotherapist. She's a hypnotherapist. She has a book out called Finding Purpose: Surprising Wisdom from the Higher Self. She is somebody who does quantum healing based on the techniques that were brought about by Dolores Cannon. If you don't know who Dolores Cannon is, I am obsessed with Dolores. I listen to everything that she says. I have been thinking about doing a quantum healing. You want to talk synchronicity? Let's talk synchronicity, folks, just for a brief second here. I have been thinking about quantum healing lately. I've had a resurgence of some symptoms, and I am running out of new techniques to fix myself. And quantum healing is something that I have heard about primarily through Dolores Cannon. And I've been thinking, you know what? I haven't tried quantum healing. I think I need to go down that path and see what it will bring. And I don't know, within a week of starting to really start thinking about marching down another modality that I have not tried before, my friend Dave Schrader. Hello, Dave. Again, I mention you almost every single day on this podcast. He sent me a guest and he said, I think this would be a really great guest for you. And it turns out she was a quantum healer by trade. And I just think it's such a weird situation when synchronicities pop up like that on your radar. I find it's a sign. I reached out to Dr. Holly and I said, hey, I'm not a big podcaster. I don't have a huge audience yet, but I would be ever so grateful if you could come on and tell me about what you do. I would love to have a session myself. And she responded with, I checked out your podcast. It seems wonderful. When are we going to do it? So I'm speaking with her this Wednesday. If you're going to listen to a podcast, I think that is the one. I'm very excited to have her on. We are going to talk about not only Dolores Cannon, but quantum healing and how it can heal you physically, mentally, socially. It's a fascinating topic that I really hope to enlighten you guys and really bring about a new technique that if you're struggling in the health world, like many of us are, this could be something that could bring you healing. And anyways, stay tuned. Please, please stay tuned. I'll be bringing you that next week. If you want to follow Scotty the Medium, he's on TikTok, Scotty the Medium, or Instagram. Scotty, what was it? It was Scotty the New Jersey Medium, NJ. Or on Facebook, he's Scott Davis. Reach out to Scotty if your loved one has passed, or you are having any kind of ghostly occurrings in your home, or you need some sort of information from the other side, he is such a generous, kind, open man who is not going to judge you and is going to help you with whatever you are in need of. So I just got such a great vibe from Scotty. Since I've been doing this podcast, I really have come across such wonderful people that are so generous of their time, that just want to put good things out in the world. And we all know that we can need good things in this world. So I say bring it on. If you need Scotty, reach out to him. I'm going to. Anyways, guys, with that, I'm going to leave it there. I will see you next week with Dr. Holly Duckworth. We're going to be talking quantum healing. I am stoked. And on that note, guys, welcome to your fate. I'll see you next week. Journey well, everyone. Bye.